My instinct kick in at the right time. Trying to end up on top like a headline. Make the motherfucker stop like a red sign. They in denial of the truth, man, they been blind. Ash to ashes, dust to dust. Them boy, they fluster. Can't be trusted. Shit's disgusting. Me and mine, but eye to eye. We on the clock, you partial time and asinine. After all, that's never really been a question. Has it never said a goal? I can't grab it. Still with the flows I compose and it's hard to grasp it. Ice cold like I wrote them in Aspen. Leave you gasping, mind blown like you're mentally gashing. Gush from the rush, concussed. This shit is a must. Only in the Lord I trust. Me, myself, and I, it's us. My cards are flushed, close to my chest and such. This shit got an odor, a cobra clutch. Leaning on niggas like a fucking crutch. In the middle of a crowd, I'm just kicking up dust. Like I'm Ron Artest throwing blows at you. Safe to say I'm out of sight, out of mind, out of touch. A deficiency of fucks to give. I am. Running from myself, I know. Running away from everything that I am. Run away, I run, I go. Hard to fight the demons when they right there. Running from myself, I know. Running away from everything that I am. Run away, I run, I go. Hard to fight the demons when they right there.
I believe that someday we'll get freed from the darkness. I believe that someday the sun will shine again.
I've been dealing with a battle on the inside, trying to find what I need to proceed to the most high. One system with two sides, stay down till we all rise. Trying to see the bigger picture through a new set of eyes. We living in wild times, the prison of our minds. The burial was designed to break down decline. I'm looking to find peace in these unsure times. My heart was in the right place, trying to give them empathy for their own sake. Self-serving with these words, tell them stay safe. Never bite into the madness and save face. I brought my own plate, set me in nice space. I ain't do the work just to run in a rat race. They got us in mazes, locked in cages. I cannot believe in these biblical pages. I've been off the leash, going hard for days, bitch. Dealing with the same shit we seen for ages. Can't stand by, walking around aimless. Trying to find resolve to dissolve the pain in.
I believe that someday we'll get freed from the darkness. I believe that someday
Good afternoon. Man, I was re-listening to the stream from yesterday. Y'all gotta tell me when that music is too loud. Alright, because what you hear and what I hear on my side, two separate things. Alright? And when I was rewatching the stream, I was like, damn, dude. That guy needs to turn down the music. So, you just gotta... Don't be afraid to tell me these things. I'll fix them. I'll fix them right quick. So, nothing really happening today. It's not, let me go ahead and, once again, go over here and wipe off my phone because there's a weird substance on it. It's tomato sauce, not blood. I had pizza for dinner. Brought home a pizza. Let me turn on the light here so that everything is set up properly. Configure video. I still don't know why I can't change the white balance. That's a little bit weird. Turn down the exposure. And that should be okay. I don't care about looking good. But what's going on, guys? How you doing? Crypto Junkie, what's going on, man? Ryan Smith. Papa. Been missing your lives. Thank you. I appreciate that. Modern, Gooey, Rick. What's going on? Good afternoon, nature. Chocolate metaphor. I'm bored with when next day VC. That is the question. You know, I was looking at the Ethereum smaller time frames, as one typically does when they're not in a trade and they're itching. I didn't take a trade, of course, but on the 15-minute time frame, it does look like we have an A to a B to a C, looking for leg continuation to the downside. I mean, I don't necessarily want to take that trade, and I'm referring to, what would probably turn into an A to a B to a C. Now, if this ends up turning into, a multi-layered structure here, in terms of, we get a little bit of an A, we get a little bit of a B, and we get a little bit of a C, and then we get an A to a B to a C. If that happens, I like that. I like that a lot. Because that would be obviously a bullish structure with confluence of local low, and obviously our major support region would be here. So the closer that we can get to that region and get a long entry, the better. But if that ends up happening, I probably would try to enter that trade. I would like to see Bitcoin and everything else lining up in a similar way when that happens as well. That would be the best case scenario. At the moment, on the smaller time frames for Bitcoin, we have a smaller time frame, A to B to C, looking for a retest to the upside. I mean, obviously it could, but I don't expect this to really be a bottom. The hope would be that this would become, a retest to the upside, which would turn this into a larger A, and then we would have a larger B, and then a larger C, if we're going to end up finding a local low, relatively up in this region. We do have plenty of room to come all the way back down to 53,640. Obviously, if you go on YouTube comments, people just are kind of giving arbitrary numbers. They go, we got to go back down to 50K. That's a possibility for sure. But at the moment, the probability would be, nothing below 53,680. If we see below 53,680, that's when I can say, okay, now we can probably go back down to 49.5. And then if we break 49.5, then we can go back down to 38.5. All right, that's how I look at it. It's probability based on what is the macro support. And if that's broken, then we can talk about the next one. But until then, I don't see any reason to really speak about it. If this ends up turning into an even larger structure in the future, A to B to C, all right, that's when I can start going, this doesn't really look good. And that's when we can start talking about maybe puncturing back into the 49 to 38K region. All right, because then from a larger perspective, we have completed trend, and we would be trying to retest lower levels. Until that happens, I'm not really a super bear at the moment. All right, I don't necessarily think the downside action is completed, but for all intents and purposes, it is. So, Ethereum has not been good performing. Are you talking about upside? Are you talking about recently? Because Ethereum was a monster trade. 17 restored ratio trade off of one move. And I mean, there's been plenty of opportunities. There's been bottoms that weren't called, but there's been tops that were called. Top there, bottom here, top there. Ethereum hasn't been moving traditionally how we would like it to, but let's not pretend like these moves aren't, percentage-wise, quite massive, we might not get the ABCs that we want, but it's about being patient. We were patient enough to wait for this one and ended up working out. can you look at render? Been tied to the AI NVIDIA narrative. I see a macro ABC, but want to get your zoomed in take. Render? So I'm assuming crypto, right? Or is it a stock? So, you know, from a macro perspective, we have A to B to C right here. And in terms of our local low support, it's respected it pretty decently here at $3.37. There's nothing really significant on the smaller time frame that you can take advantage of. So obviously we tried to get back above the $6.32 region, but we've been rejected since then. Obviously, if we get back above that, that is good for the market as a whole. But in terms of, you know, anything to take advantage of on the smaller time frames, I don't quite see that. The hope would be is, you know, as things move along, hopefully this turns into your A, and then we get a B to a C. And, you know, if all things work out appropriately, that A would be around the previous resistance, or maybe a little bit lower, down towards the previous support. And you would have a bullish pattern to enter off of on a previous resistance retest, confirming support, which would be overall bullish for the coin, and then continue, would at least, you know, come back up to 650. You would hope for more, especially with getting past this level here on the macro. And then you can start targeting possibly even all the way back up to 11 to 14. So I would be patient. I don't think there's any real reason to kind of get ahead of yourself on this. You know, I'm not saying that it's the perfect coin. It's definitely a lot of chop. I can see plenty of instances where you would have taken 1,000 ABCs that ended up not working out. So definitely stick to the larger time frames. And just be patient and really wait for structures that look significant. So yeah, I mean, you have the macro and you can start trying to play into it. But other than that, there's nothing like significant that I see. Hey Kite, has there been an interesting mention of this being a Wyckoff distribution pattern to the downside on BTC? Yeah, that was something that came up during the latter end of the bull market. To me, it doesn't really matter. You know, it all works out the same. Target local lows, target local highs, and play it by ear. You know, if you start trying to be like, you know, has to be the time that it goes up because we have our three bottoms. It's a Wyckoff, you know, whatever it might be. I'm sure there's some argument to be made of that, but to me, it doesn't change how I am influenced by the market. Someone got offended at yesterday's stream, and it's the same person that constantly leaves these dumb messages. It's the same person that you know, left a message where it was like, you know, your stupid 49K will not be hit. And look what happened. Once again, it's not about me being right. I could have, you know, we could have blasted off to the upside. It doesn't matter to me. It's the fact that you're like so violently offended that you need to comment something because you're pissed off. And then, you know, when we were having one dump, I jumped on. And because I'm not influenced by the market, I wasn't frantic. I was very calm and relaxed. They were, I guess, offended that I was calm. And they were like, he's so calm in the middle of bombs, you know, but in a like derogatory term. So yesterday when one of you guys brought up whiff, you know, dog with hat, it gave me a chuckle. And I guess he got offended. He was like, don't you laugh at that. It's going to hit billions. And to me, like, I just don't see how people can get so offended by stuff like that. first off, I'm just one dude. If you're very confident in something, why is me having a chuckle at it, uh, causing you to have a reaction so violent that you need to let me know that you're upset by it? But also, do you not live in a like reality? Can you not objectively see how that can be funny? There's no doubt that people are dumb enough to buy into these coins. History has proven that. All right, Doge, Pepe, whatever you want to say, like these coins that aren't worth anything, technology wise, or just whatever you want to say, that they're built for the sole reason that humans are stupid and people can make money off of that. So if I can't have a chuckle that something like that is at a $1.5 billion market cap, like what world do you live in? Like what do you find funny? It's an absurd situation that we're in where something like that can have that crazy of a market cap. I can't laugh at that without you being offended enough to comment. It's so weird. So I kind of just got done with it. I just hid him from the channel. It's sad because I don't like to hide people from the channel, especially when they're not like spamming like bot comments about buy this AWS 725 coin. But at the same time, it's just like I hate seeing it. It's so dumb. And I feel like it's healthier if I cut that off for the person, because apparently you're not good enough to control your impulse to disagree with someone so much but still watch their content. So, I know who you are. You know who you are. I hope you have a good life. And, I still would like for you to watch the streams. Hopefully you can start using ABCs to your advantage and you can get the emotion out of your trades. That'd be awesome. But that's all I gotta say about that. It's weird. We live in a weird place, guys. Well, yeah, like last bull market, we traded some of these dog coins that I know weren't gonna last, and they haven't. All right. But when there's an opportunity, because people are so dumb, I'll take your money. If you're willing to go invest in a dog coin, actually believing that you're gonna retire off of it, I'll take your money. Like, I guess it's better off in my hands. But it's one of those things where like if I can't even like have a chuckle, what world are we living in? And Kite, you laughing makes me suicidal. I'm sorry, that was just a response. Please don't. Whiff is hella funny though. I'm trading Popcat too. My short at 150%. Feel like if BT is downtrading these meme coins, nuke triple. Absolutely. Hello everyone. Any chance of looking at gold, please? What's gold's ticker? Yeah, I knew it was something that looked alien. Exal USD. That was weird. All right, so let's look at the macro real quick. This was our last known ABC bottoming pattern all the way back here in 2022 that we looked at. We ended up finding support off of that, and we continued to the upside. From a super macro perspective, gold just should not get back below kind of this region here. If we do happen to come back below 1932 to 2078, that would be ultimately bearish. You'd probably be looking to retest 1057 to 684. And I'm not saying any of these numbers are, something that you're realistically looking at anytime soon, but I, just kind of am showing my approach when I'm coming into something that I haven't looked at in a long time or never looked at. I always start on the super macro. I look at what resistances and supports are the most important, and then we start working our way from there. Okay, simple as that. These numbers are realistic if such and such was to happen, but more importantly, it's just kind of building out a framework to see what is going to be an influence. So now we can kind of go into the medium time frames, I guess you could say, from a gold's perspective. So now your medium term time frame supports that are of super significance. The most recent one would be 1612. All right. So if we do happen to have a downtrend of any significance, more than likely you're probably looking for a retest of 1612, or at minimum a retest of 1932. Somewhere in that region would be respectable. And the reason why I'm kind of talking that way, is because on the smaller time frames, we do have some sort of semblance of an ABC top. It's definitely a little bit rocky, but we do have an A to a B to a C situation, and then within that C wave, we do have an A to a B to a C here. All right, with kind of like a double top, lower high on the shorter time frames. So in the kind of immediate short term, the level that you really need to hold to maintain any sort of bullishness would be 2,480. All right, if we do happen to get below there, but more importantly, if we happen to get below 2,452, you definitely would be looking for some sort of retest to the downside. At minimum, I would expect 2,352, which is the immediate local low here. And then obviously, the more realistic number would be 2,189. So if you do see downside coming up here shortly, if you do happen to confirm back underneath around 2,480, you would probably be looking for a return trip back down to probably about 2,320 as an average. But of course, as we just said, all right, past that point, there is no real support. There's a tiny bit of support at 2,145, but realistically, you would probably be looking to come back down to about 2,080. All right. And that's pretty much all there is to say. It's a game of probabilities and previous supports and resistances. There shouldn't be any bias to what I just said. All right. It's a simple if this and that statement. If we can stay above these levels, then the local lows do not need to be retested. We can continue to the upside. But if we do happen to come back below previous highs, that is a bearish signal. So therefore, the market, you shouldn't really look at it as a bearish thing. Wants to retest previous places where we have found support in order to continue higher after confirming that those price levels are stable. Simple as that. All right. And although on a macro time frame, there is, our last major level of support was 1,600. There's still plenty of things that we can do in the meantime to find support before coming back down. All right. The only time that I would ever be, talking about 1,600 as a realistic level is if we crossed back down below, 1916, 1920. All right. That's when we can start targeting 1612 to, 1,100 pretty much. But that's all I got to say about gold. It's an if this and that statement. Other than that, you play your cards. Now, if you're looking for real immediate short term, we had an ABC top, so we're probably looking to retest 2,470. If we can't stay above 2,503. All right. And that's the thing. It's never a for sure thing. All right. It's always an if this and that statement. If we can't stay above here, then we need to retest down here. If we can stay above this level, then we can retest this previous level. If we're in price discovery, you kind of just play it by ear. All right. There's nothing more you can do besides that. Calling it September 17th, the bull market will start. Do you watch Crypto Face? Is that where you're getting that number from? I when I was in the car today, I was bored, and Crypto Face got recommended to me for the first time in months. So I stopped by to kind of see what he was talking about. And I'm pretty sure he mentioned September 17th. I think that had something to do with the Fed meeting, but yeah. After the presidential elections, we will see some good gains. Hopefully. I mean, it all depends on who gets elected. I truthfully think. I think on Livestream today, I'm going to do a little bit of a video reaction to something that I posted in the Discord today from Caleb Hammer. Now, I don't get political on the channel. All right, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I would like to talk about individual policies. So, you know, Trump has something that I think could negatively impact people, and it's brought to my attention. I don't really like go through and nitpick, but obviously I watch Caleb Hammer, and he brought up this policy, so I feel like I can do the same. All right, we're talking about a policy here. We're not talking about the person. And of course, it's you know, one of those things where I strictly understand that a president can have something that they want to implement, whether or not, you know, the Senate and the Supreme Court is going to kind of agree on all that is a different thing. But the president having a way things they want them to go could help increase the chances of that happening. And overall, so obviously I always look at it from both perspectives. What would be the most beneficial thing? I don't think that policy should go into action, but at the same time, if it did, what would be the benefit of it? How could I use it to my advantage? All that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on. But the gist of it is, if you're making over $1 million in capital gains per year, whether that's on real estate or stocks or whatever it might be, all right, if you're making over that $1 million mark, you are now taxed a minimum, all right, which meaning they didn't really talk about the upside, a minimum of 25% on the unrealized gains. So if I'm a high stakes trader and I have, you know, $1,100,000 in profit on a long trade or whatever that might be, I am then taxed 25% on $1.1 million before I've even realized the gains. Meaning I could get taxed on that, have to pay, you know, $300,000, and then the trade goes against me. You could see how that could be an issue, right? You can see how that's not a good idea. So from a trader's perspective, all right, that's not a good thing, right? So, you know, or I have, you know, $1 million home that's appreciated by $400,000, and I have other assets that are making me money. So now I'm taxed 25% on that $400,000 that my house has gone up. Which, who is making up that value? All right, Zillow gets to be in charge of how much I'm paying in gains. You know, that's where it kind of becomes a gray area, and why I don't think it is a good policy. All right, and then what would that do to markets? It would make it so that when tax season comes around, there would be massive sell-offs having to cover the unrealized gains. It could wreck the markets financially. So from my perspective, although I think that would be incredibly terrible for everybody involved, for the people that aren't necessarily looking for, I guess, a private jet lifestyle, and they are making $200,000 a year, that could increase the volatility in the markets substantially. So therefore, there might be more trade opportunities to the upside and to the downside, because now there is more of a reason for people to sell massive amounts of their liquidity. That is kind of what I would assume the silver lining would be from like a trader perspective. From like a moral perspective, you could say like, well, now that increases money for government programs. Taxes are like 100% higher than they were during World War II. and nothing has gotten better from the government side. Come on. More taxes has never been the answer. Where does it end then? All right, if we're all taxed 99% and the government is in control of all of the money, what do you think they're going to do with it? You think they're going to make your life better? No, they're going to start another war or something. You know, that's just how it goes. Taxing unrealized gains is smart because it's used as a loophole and is only for over 100 million. From what I was told, it's over $1 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but if you have one or two properties and a 401k, you know, people can get to that 1 million mark pretty easily. All right. I don't think it's 100 million, but I could be wrong. Okay, I definitely could be wrong. And even if it is 100 million, that stunts the growth of the economy pretty harshly. Now, I'm not saying that the rich should not be taxed, but what I'm saying is if they're investing into property, business expansion and stuff like that, and that's kind of how they're tax sheltering, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. All right. But and the easy answer to this is if, you know, a company is forced to pay that tax because they're headquartered in the United States, they're just going to go elsewhere. Like, that's just how these things work. So they're going to take the jobs with them and everything else that comes along with that that's beneficial to the economy. I don't think this is the way to go, personally. And it just becomes this incredibly gray area as well, where how do you determine unrealized gains on property? You know, who's determining that value? Like I said, is it Zillow? Is it the United States government themselves? Can they fraudulently pump those numbers up? Where does that come from? I think they're going to be spending more money in trying to collect those taxes than it might actually be worth. Like, I've talked about this a couple times, and obviously I'm not a super economist. All right. I'm just as dumb as most people. All right. My answer to the tax problem, you know, if this policy is coming from the fact that people want to not pay taxes at all because they feel like they're too high, or, you know, they feel like they're being penalized for being, you know, smarter than the rest of people, why don't we just make the taxes lower? All right. If the tax rate is 40%, but because they're able to find legal loopholes and only pay 10%, why don't we just make the taxes 25%? And that way, and I know, you know, it's not that easy, because you're going to go, well, then they're just going to try to pay even lower. But to me, I feel like it's a game of give and take. All right. If you're forcing someone to pay 40%, that does not feel good. So they're going to go find ways to try to pay 10%. But if I go, hey, you know, I don't want your taxes to be super high, but I do feel like it's fair that 25%, you know, that way they don't feel like they're being forced into a situation where they need to go find a legal loophole. And then obviously you get more than you actually would if you charge the higher number. You know, it's the same thing like with products. You know, if I am charging $700 for something and people just aren't buying it because they don't feel like it's worth it, you know, maybe a couple are because they need it or they just are dumb enough to purchase it. But what if I go and I charge $300 for that? then hey, more people are buying it because they feel like it's a better value. That's how I kind of think about it in terms of like, if you're fair to people, then they're more willing to participate in the system that you have set up. But, you know, obviously people hate rich people. That's just how it be, I guess. It's understandable. You know, if someone that's making $600,000 a year pays 50% in taxes, they still have $300,000 left over. They're not struggling. All right. If you take someone that's making $20K a year and they're forced to pay 50% in taxes, they're obviously losing their house, their home, and their car. So obviously the person that is at 20K is only taxed, 10%. But at the same time, it's seeing that number. Like, I just put myself in that situation. If I'm making $1 million a year and the government takes $400,000 of that just because, I would feel some type of way about that too. I'm moving countries. Like, what do you mean you're taking $400,000 from me? Like, that's the situation that I think a lot of people just can't put themselves in in those shoes and see how that could maybe feel terrible. They go, it's for people over $100 million. Fuck those guys. Am I right? But at the same time, I think there's implications that could be way worse than the current situation. Like I said, I didn't bring that up to be political and bash on Kamala Harris. All right. It's simply talking about the policy itself. And to me, you can make an argument for it, but I think there's things that you can't account for. And the things that you can account for, just on paper, I don't see how it's a good thing. All right, you can make the argument that it gives more money to the government, but we saw what that means. It just means they create more bullshit jobs to pay themselves, all right, and it doesn't help anybody. All right, they don't increase the zoning in order to increase the supply of houses and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't help anything. It's the same thing like, during the Biden administration, they were trying to get like $25,000 grants in tax credits to go towards new home buyers. To me, it's essentially the same thing that what happened with student loans. All right. On the surface, it seems like a good idea, but in practice, combined with capitalism, it just doesn't work. So student loans, for example, if you have a federal student loan of say $100,000 to go to a 4-year school, all right, pretty much the government will give that to anybody because the government's ideology is the more people that are educated, the better our economy will do because we have more educated citizens. All right, on the surface, good idea, right? But what happens is now everybody is able to get that loan, and despite the interest rate or whatever it might be, people go for it. So the schools, although there is still a competition between this school and this school, so one might have a lower price and one might have a higher price, on average, both schools can now increase the price of tuition because now the more students have access to more money, so therefore they can milk the students for more. It's the same thing with like farming subsidies. All right, that happens as well. Subsidies do not increase lower prices. They increase the price because the government is giving out free money. Let's go ahead and take it. So to me, like, if you're giving, a bunch of people $25,000 for free in order to go buy a new home, what does that do to the price of homes? Probably increases it on average because now more people have access to more money for those homes. There's always an equal and opposite thing that happens. The policy is for 100 million, not 1 million. Okay, so I'm probably wrong on that. I probably just kind of glossed over that in the video. But to me, I still see that as an issue, because although it's not affecting, I guess what you would hope to be in the future is, a trader that has $20 million and you're making $1 million of profit per year. But at the same time, if it's affecting companies like Netflix or these companies that employ the majority of the population, I still don't think that's a good thing. I think that is going to screw some things up. Now, at the same time, I can see where I could use that to my advantage. All right. You kind of have to, because nothing's set in stone. The policy could get passed. So if that does happen, there will be more volatility in the markets. I could use that to my advantage. More trades on the board. All right. But overall, I don't see how that's a good thing. I think that's going to make people move to less tax burden countries. And that's the thing, like, in the video that I talked about by Caleb Hammer, he kind of goes into the history of it, where taxes, income tax in particular, federal income tax, didn't used to exist. All right. It was only because of the Civil War in World War II that taxes were implemented. And I don't know if you guys done your research, but for the ultra wealthy during World War II, the tax rate was like 98%. I would fight. I don't care if anybody's going to join me. Like, I'm fighting at that point. If you're taking 98% of what I'm making, I would shoot somebody. All right, I'm going down to the local USPS. All right, you're a part of the U.S. government. You're getting it. All right, if you're taking 98% from me. So taxes have only been around for a little bit. And that's the thing. Like, if I'm not opposed to taxes, but at the same time, it's like if you're paying 20%, 25%, and the more money you make, the more you have to pay. If you're not seeing that reflected in the country that you live in, better infrastructure, better roads, better schools, better zoning, lower prices. If you're not seeing that, and that money is being spent on a $50,000 pair of bolts that goes on a tank overseas, at that point, like, I'm mad. So although, like, I'm advocating for the ultra wealthy to not get taxed anymore, where does it end? If I don't advocate for these companies not having to pay an outlandish tax on money that doesn't even exist yet, when do they come for me? All right. It's rules for thee, not for me. Just because they're ultra rich doesn't mean that it's not going to get tossed down the line at some point. And they're going to go, hey, you might have been taxed on that, $1,000 that you sent to your Uncle Rob, because he was due on bills. When Uncle Rob sends that $1,000 back to you to repay you, you got to pay taxes on it again. Where does it stop? So that's where I kind of stand. Although, like, I might be advocating for ultra wealthy there, I think there's implications that the majority of people will feel from that. And then at the same time, where does it stop? So, stop. I feel like this is a conversation that a lot of people can get heated on, because, I have one perspective, but at the same time, people, they go, screw the rich. At the same time, don't you want to be rich? So what happens when you get there? You know? You know, the hope would be that, like, in the future, you know, let's say there's a new country that's the superpower of the world. Let's say their government functions like a business where the citizens aren't forced to pay taxes, but let's say there's like a blockchain voting system set up where, you know, like a mass text gets sent out or whatever. You have like your own government login where you can kind of see what they're proposing. And let's say it's going to cost them $200 million to do such and such. You know, we can use our money as like voting. So they propose it, you read it, does it make sense? If it does, you know, people can send over their crypto, boom, they pay for it. You know, like that would be pretty cool, right? Obviously, you know, that's kind of like a dream thing, but I really do think that like governments need a little bit more oversight. And I feel like the people that run the businesses that are attached to the government can pretty much charge whatever they want. You know, a bunch of nuts, bolts, and screws that go on a tank have like a 7,000% markup simply because they know that the U.S. government is going to be the one paying for it. It's so weird. Elon Musk said to Trump that he's going to help them manage funds. I don't necessarily know if that is the best option, but, you know, it would be cool to have like an actual super intelligence AI that, without the murderous intent, can find inefficiencies and all that kind of stuff with government budgets and all that jazz. And so, you know, it's the illusion. So people talk about like, oh, you only have the illusion of choice. But at the same time, there's an inverse to that. It's the illusion that you're trapped in a system. You know, people go like, whether you vote for red or blue, you're getting the same thing. But at the same time, ain't nobody got to vote. All right? And nobody has to vote. So, you know, there's this whole thing with DoorDash. So DoorDash has a tiered system, right? Platinum, gold, silver, no tier. So the way that it works in a perfect world is that if I'm a platinum driver and a really good order shows up and I'm in a parking lot full of people that are gold drivers, that order is going to go to me. All right, so I'm making more money because I'm of a higher tier. But what that ends up doing is sometimes you do orders that are not favorable. The person that is a no tier, although they might not get orders all the time, when an order shows up for $2 for 10 miles, where they're actually paying money to deliver that food, they just simply don't take it because they're not participating in that system. If all of the drivers just said, I'm not participating in the system, well, yeah, there would be slight negatives, I guess, but at the same time, nobody would have to take the orders that didn't make any sense. And it would actually be fair. Whoever is closest to the restaurant would be the one that gets the order. That would kind of be how it would work. So although, one driver that's making $200 might see a decrease in their pay of $50, which that $50 might have been coming from orders that actually didn't make any sense at all, and they probably were break even or even at a loss, but on paper they think they're losing $50. One driver might actually get an order now that helps them, so it kind of balances out. So it's the illusion that you have to participate in the system and that you're trapped. But if everybody just stopped, what choice does the business have? They still need to make money, but now they need to either, one, increase the pay to make the orders that weren't worth doing, or two, fire the people that aren't participating in the system. Now with DoorDash, they can't do that legally. All right. You're an independent contractor. They can't fire you for declining an order. Simple as that. So my question is like, they shove so much stuff down your throat, but if you honestly believe that you're not getting a good option either way, don't vote. If November 5th came along and, obviously it would never happen. There would always be one person that's like, I gotta do that. But if nobody voted, what happens? I'm honestly curious. If nobody voted on election night to the point where there is an inconclusive winner, what happens to the country at that point? What happens to the presidency? Is there a de facto? Of course, there would probably be a retally, another day to go vote because maybe they thought people just were too busy to vote that day. But then what if it happened again? Like, I'm honestly curious what happens. Is there like a law to that if that ever happens? Or, say it like this, if we all think that the government is not correctly appropriating the funds from taxes, if the majority of the population, 51% of people stopped paying it, what are they going to do? Lock everybody up? The government would be shut down in a day because they're in so much debt. They wouldn't be afford to pay the IRS enough to care to go after the people. Like, honestly, what would happen? So there's this illusion that you're trapped in it, but if enough people really agreed on something, there would be change. But there's so much disruption in the minds of people that they're forced to believe one way or the other, when you don't have to believe anything at all. You don't have to participate in it. And to most people, that's such an outlandish thing to even think about, that it's unrealistic. And of course, is it the probability? Not even close. Because there's always going to be people that are convinced otherwise. And it's out of fear, psychedelics one time, because psychedelics obviously make you think of weird things. But one of the things that it made me think about was what if someone is living a life that is full of crime or whatever, and they honestly wanted it to change, but they're kind of stuck in that repetition. That person could literally walk out of the door and just start walking in the opposite direction and find a new life. It's that simple. They could just start walking out of that city that they think is so decrepit and crime ridden and all that kind of stuff. They could just literally start walking. But obviously, you start adding on reality. What am I going to do about water on this walk? I need money for water. What do you know? How do I get the money for the water? Where am I going to sleep? Blah, 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 blah. You start piling on all this stuff. But at the same time, there is a simplistic answer. And I'm probably not explaining that in the best way, but it's very abstract. Well, like with the DoorDash thing, you know, because obviously I do DoorDash and I think about this a lot. If a large enough majority, say 40% of the population of a city, stops participating in the tiered system, what happens? Now, the market is flooded with shit orders. And those shit orders, no matter what happens, the people that aren't participating in the system aren't going to take those orders. So now, the people that are holding on to this idea and this notion that they have to be a platinum driver in order to maintain making a sizable amount of money, their phones are now flooded with those crap orders. And at first, they might start taking them, thinking that they need to maintain their platinum. But then what happens? Eventually, it gets to a breaking point where either their car is physically breaking down because they can't pay for the repairs because they're losing money on these orders, or they need to start declining these offers. And then eventually, they start coming down and they get put in the other population that's like, this isn't profitable for us. Why are we participating in this? Let's all share the money collectively. And if there isn't enough money out there that makes sense and is profitable, well then we probably all shouldn't be dashing at the same time. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, if you have enough population doing the correct thing, it will force the other side of the population, even if it's actually larger than the percentage, to start participating in it as well. And I think that the same thing could work with the U.S. government and taxes. All right, when someone defaults on credit debt or whatever it might be, the bank writes it off and they sell it to somebody else, and then that debt collector will call you and ask for 50% of that. And of course, you don't have to pay them because they already wrote off your debt and you've probably already filed bankruptcy. But at the same time, they're willing to bargain for that debt. And I think the U.S. government, if forced into that position to where they can't imprison everybody, would have to do the same thing, where they go, all right, you're not willing to pay 20% taxes. What if we took it down to 15% or 10%? Are you willing to pay it then? All right, we need the money. We've been shut down for 2 months. We can't even pay the IRS to come after you. All right, we can't subsidize prisons to put you in prison. Can you at least pay 10%? And you go, you know what? I got you, dude. Here's $2,000 for my $20,000 a year that I make that I can barely survive on, but at least that's fair. There you go. If everybody participated in that, things would change. That's all I'm saying. And Uber Eats, Uber Eats is quite trash where I live. All right, there's really not a lot of offers in the first place. But that's the one thing about Uber Eats that I like. All right, there is no tiered system where if I am better than the next guy, I get the better offers. All right, I'm free to decline whatever I want to decline. All right, if a $2 10-mile comes up, I'm not going to accept that, and I don't feel bad about it. Now on DoorDash, because of the acceptance rate in the tier program, I have to be a little bit more kind of lenient, where it's like, okay, $6, 6 miles, I'll take it. I'm not making much profit, but at least it's not unprofitable. So that way, when a $2 10-mile comes up, I can decline it and not feel bad about it. Man, this is what happens when the market doesn't give us anything to do. We end up talking about crazy ideas. I got a ride for $25 yesterday. The girl told me she was paying $78. I canceled and she happily cashed out me. Dude, that's what they do in like India and stuff. Is they no shame. They will cancel the ride and then be like, cash at me, half of what you're paying, and I'll take you wherever you want to go. And obviously that is against DoorDash's policy, but that's the thing. Like if DoorDash or Uber is making $40 compared to your $25, when you could cancel the ride, that person pays you $35. Now you're making 50% more, and they're paying 50% less. It's better for both people involved. All right, it's the same thing like where like if I go to a restaurant often and the person knows me and I order a Coke, and instead of ringing me up for a $4 Coke on the check, they put it as a water, which is $0. I'm paying less money and I can tip them more because I'm paying less money. So therefore they get more money. I spend less money. Win-win situation. And I was looking at to see if there was any legislation in Virginia that was going to come into play involving DoorDash. Because obviously California has Prop 22, which, although California is stupid expensive, at least that helps the DoorDash drivers immensely. Which basically means if they're not getting what they are required, by minimum wage, there's a stipend that will fulfill the rest of that money. So if they only make $250, but they were supposed to make $400, they'll get a stipend for $150 at the end of the week or whatever. So in Virginia, they're doing portable benefits. Now, in the proposed law, for if you make over $1,000 base pay from DoorDash in a quarter, then you will be 100% matched with that in like a savings fund from DoorDash, which I haven't really understood it, but it comes down to like healthcare, 401k. It even mentioned that if the driver like hit kind of like Prop 22, where if they worked 40 hours but they only made like $10 an hour, but minimum wage is $20 an hour for that job, it would have to come out of that. They're doing that in, I think, Pennsylvania or Connecticut or something, but it's only 4%. So hopefully if that does come into play in Virginia, they get what they're asking for, which is 100% match, which I think would be super, super good. So, I mean, if I look at it, just in this month alone, $83 of base pay, $139, $148. So, like, I'm already up to like $400 of base pay, and that's just 1 month. So. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you just don't have to participate in the system. Like, if things continue the way that they're going, I'm basically gonna be like the Church of Scientology, and I'm like, if I see another DoorDasher in a McDonald's, I'm gonna walk up to them with a little clipboard, and I'm gonna explain why they should not participate in the system, and then I'll, get their signature, get them to sign up for like a Telegram group or something like that where we can, coordinate, and then, hopefully plan a day where nobody participates in it, because it has to be an equal thing, right? Where people don't feel like they're getting screwed. Because if there's one guy that's participating in the platinum and he's taking all the good orders, then yeah, people feel like they're getting gypped. But if nobody participated in the tier system, DoorDash would be forced to pay more. But I'll do it. I'll be the little guy asking to sign up to my church group. And of course, most people are going to be selfish and they're not going to really understand what I'm saying, because it's easy. It's easy just to continue with what you're being force-fed, which is, if I take all these trash orders, I'll benefit. But really, you're not. All right, you're just doing the dirty work. And it has to be really like case-by-case basis, because like, if maintaining platinum means that you get an order that pays $60, and you have a 70% chance of getting that type of order at least once a day, then yeah, being platinum might have its perks. But at the same time, overall, I don't think it's a good thing. Because I mean, I know how to game systems. All right, I'm very smart. I notice patterns and I can manipulate them. So when I was doing DoorDash, I noticed how far I needed to be sitting away from something. I did things that other people didn't think of. So in the old system, before we went to the tiered system, I noticed that actually being closer to restaurants means you got the worse orders faster. All right, so I would actually sit outside the limits and I would get banger after banger after banger, where, the old system, the old DoorDash algorithm, if there was a crappy order, it would work from the inside out. So therefore, it would have to go through more drivers in order to hit me. All right, it doesn't seem to necessarily be that way anymore. But as well as that, like, there was LOP, where like a very small number of people would get these significantly high dollar orders. Now, pretty much everybody has access to them. So therefore, they're not as, they're more rare. Stuff like that. At one point, I could work an 8-hour shift and walk away with $300 from DoorDash. It was a pretty good gig. And that was like only driving like $100, 100 miles a day, which is super, super good if you know anything about driving for DoorDash. So my gas was low, my profits were high, and I was only doing offers that made sense. There's too many people dashing and driving now. Shake my head. And that's the thing, like, a lot of people get mad at other people. They go, other people are stealing my orders. There's too many drivers out here. But to me, that's not an issue. All right, if I want to do this job, regardless of how many people are out here, that's going to determine whether or not I keep that job. But I'm never going to be mad at someone that wants to pay their bills. I'll be mad at the company for not paying appropriately for what I think it's worth. The thing is like, if DoorDash is making like $8 off of delivery fee and the charge that they give to the restaurant, which is a percentage fee of the food, then why can't DoorDash pay me $4 minimum to deliver that order? If the customer tipped $2 and DoorDash is paying me $4, and it's a $6 order, and it's going 5 miles, it's not the greatest order, but it's profitable. Depending on which, if you have a truck, I guess it's not profitable. But if you got, a nice hatchback or something, or a hybrid. That's a profitable order. It's not, going to make you really high dollar metric per hour, but it's something you can do. But no, DoorDash goes $2, and then DoorDash goes, oh, you're delivering 2 orders to 2 different customers, $1 per order. So you end up getting paid $2 for 2 orders going 10 miles. It's DoorDash is out their frickin' mind. But if people just stopped participating, things would change. And people just don't. And that's the problem. Like, we're all separated in our ideologies and stuff like that. And that's okay. Like, that creates a functioning society, is having opposing views. And that's how progress is made. But at the same time, we're so separated that we can't see that if there's just a fraction of people that work together, things would change so significantly. It's not even funny. And it's so sad. It's so sad. Check out DoorDash. DoorDash had an ABC continuation to the upside here. DoorDash had an A to a B, and right now we're working on the C wave. So there could be a significant pullback if we can't break this range after testing it. If we have an A to a B to a C here, instead of putting in that higher high, well, then this might be an opportunity to invest in DoorDash. How much is DoorDash up from that? Really not that much. It's kind of sad. What's your view on money? You don't seem interested in getting ultra rich, or at least not in an unethical way like a lot of people. Why so? Because at the end of the day, like, I don't think money is wrong, because I do think it is a really cool concept, because at its core, what is money? It is a physical representation of a human's time. All right. At its core, I believe that's what it is. It's showing the ineffable resource that is a human's life in paper form. So I think money is good because it allows us to trade that in a way that's seeable and easy. But at the same time, to me, being ultra rich, I just don't see how that helps anything. Like, of course, would it, I guess, feel good? Yeah, but it's like a drug. Is it good for you? Probably not. It probably detaches you from the ability to speak to other people in any sort of meaningful way. Now, it's a two-sided street. The person on the lower end might see you as an arrogant asshole, but at the same time, you actually might be an arrogant asshole because you might see them as a peasant, So it creates a barrier of separation between someone who is just another human, so you can't have any meaningful conversation with them. And at the same time, if they're missing out on basic necessities because this person has more, like I said, I do believe that capitalism works because it allows you to have financial incentive for innovation, but at the same time, all right, if you have someone that's dirt poor, now that could be a choice as well. They could just, be a bad person making bad decisions, and that's why they're poor. But if they're trying, but they can't succeed because one person is hogging all the money, I just see that as as an ethical problem. So, to me, if you have a roof over your head and you have a means of transportation and you have food in your fridge and you have a connection to other human beings around you, whether that's an actual relationship or just a relationship to family and friends, and you have some sort of community, beyond that point, why do you need $100 million? You know, what more would that bring you? You know, it would bring you a bigger house over your head. It would bring you a faster mode of transportation, which there's a speed limit, you know. So to me, like, having a car that can go 400 miles an hour, although is pretty cool, you know, gotta admit, at the same time, like, if I buy that car and I'm a regular person, the max that I can go is like, what, 75, 80 if I'm going just a little bit over the speed limit on the highway. So what's the point in having that crazy car? Just what's the purpose of it? I don't know. Like, it's hard to put into words without sounding like a communist, because I'm not. Like I said, I really do think that capitalism works well. I think the problem is with the emotional state of the population within that system. There's a lot of egotism and looking out for just me, that it's overpowered what would be a great system. And if people stopped participating in that way, there would be a more equal distribution of wealth. And I think that would allow people that normally wouldn't get the chance to innovate to innovate. And it would be a better system for everybody involved. It's an idealistic point of view, but I don't think it's one that's unachievable. I think it's one of those things where you just have to have people that are willing to stop, even at the consequence of their own detriment. So, like I said, if you have a person that is on DoorDash that's making a lot more money than the next guy because they're participating in this system that's holding other people down, although it might detriment them and make them a little bit less money, overall it would benefit all of them equally, which would force a positive change that would then in turn make it even better for everybody equally. But it first has to start with someone saying, I am willing to give up X, Y, and Z, and in hopes in the future benefiting even more than I probably thought I could have if I continued the way things were. Yeah, like I'm sure my positions will change because that's what happens over time. But like I had the fancy car, and of course when I first got it, I felt, big, and I showed it off to everybody, and it very quickly became apparent to me every time I sat in it how much more I felt disconnected, and that it was just a hunk of metal. Plain and simple. So you can extrapolate that out to the rest of your life. If you have a gigantic frickin' house with 18 bedrooms, but only 3 people live in it, what is that doing for you, dude? You're just paying more in property taxes. That's what it's doing for you. So, I don't know. It's a hard thing, but I think at the end of the day, security is really the only thing that should matter. So, beyond that, it's excess. And I don't believe we should continue that. That's all. I feel you, but I need that Lambo. You know? And that's the thing, though. What if everybody had a Lambo? What does that do? You know, if we're coming from like the point of view of current society, if everybody was driving a Lambo, well, then what becomes a Lambo? It's no longer something special. It's no longer something that you actually want, because everybody else has one too. So like, why? You know, you don't feel the Lambo isn't the cool thing. The cool thing is how it makes you feel, because in comparison to everything else around it, it's pretty freaking awesome. But if everybody stopped paying for cars that were outlandishly priced and all that kind of stuff, well, then cars would get better and cheaper at the same time. I mean, we can talk crazy all day. So like, all right, there's gonna be a lot of people that hate this conversation, but this is something that's like been stuck in my head, and as many things, it came from a psychedelic trip. So like, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm contemplating just different stuff. It kind of pops into my head. All right, so when I was in 4th grade, on the early days of YouTube, I get introduced to the conspiracy theory, and some would go, that's not a conspiracy theory, that's the downright truth. And of course, there is some truth to it. But I'm a 4th grader, and I get introduced to the idea of the New World Order, that the ultra rich and the powerful globalists are going to financially lock everybody into a system where they are forced to participate, or they are locked out of the system and basically left to die. So in this system, the primary objective is to create a one world government and a one world currency in order to basically lock the planet into this system. And it's controlled by an oligarchy of people. My first thought was, how does a 4th grader know about this super plan? You know, if these people are so rich and powerful, why does a little tiny kid know about it? So the easy answer is that these people do it right in front of your face, because, you know, they're so rich and powerful that they can get away with it. But I've come to the conclusion that it is a magic trick. All right. If you want to assume that these people are so rich and powerful that they can do this, I think they're more rich and powerful enough to actually convince you not to do it. All right. It's a very crazy and very backwards way of thinking, but let's assume that these people basically prey on the ego. When someone learns of a secret knowledge or secret truth that they believe that other people have not caught on to yet, they get a big head about it and they want to share it with other people. Similar how I'm doing to you right now. All right. So then they go and they spread that false narrative. let's assume that they put that seed out there. You know, a couple government plants on YouTube early in the days, on the internet, whatever it might be, making these false videos that on the surface make complete sense. And then at the same time, kind of in front of your face in public, they make decisions that align with that narrative. So from a insider perspective, you know the plan. And then from an outside perspective, you watching them go to these secret billionaire meetings, whatever that is. You're like, see, it's true because they're doing X, Y, and Z. What if that does not benefit them at all? You know, at its core, if humans were able to get along enough to eliminate borders, which would then most likely eliminate war, along with currency, where governments no longer fight over, you know, that kind of stuff, that would probably be a good thing, right? And let's assume this new government is a democracy. Well, then what can they actually control? So if the entire world is working together like a gigantic ant colony, well, we could probably achieve anything. And the living conditions of everybody would probably get better. But in order for me to benefit, I have to create division, and I have to make sure that people are working against each other and believe that their neighbor is actually the evil one, and that they need to work harder in this stupid system in order to get to a higher level than the person that they're next to. But in turn, who's benefiting? Me. All right, it's the same exact analogy as DoorDash. I'm DoorDash, and I need the drivers to compete against each other and do more shit things so that I get more orders delivered, and I'm making money either way, but yet they're fighting against each other, trying to nickel and dime each other over orders. Right? So I just need to sell them that false narrative that if they're a platinum driver, they're going to make more money. So that's kind of like my really weird idea. And that's very contrarian. That all this talk about you'll own nothing and be happy is actually a false narrative that is getting you riled up so that you'll never actually get to that point where you will own nothing and be happy. Because if you realistically look at it, we're kind of in that already, but from a different point of view. You know, someone has a gigantic mortgage on their home. They don't own their home. If they miss 6 payments on it, it gets taken from them. But they have a feeling of ownership. They're on a car payment. They don't actually own their car, even though their name is on the title. It could be taken from them. You have a day job. You feel like you do good at your day job. You've been there for 10 years. They could fire you tomorrow. You don't actually own any job security. You have an ideology of it. But if the world was in such a significant place where people were given the necessities for nothing, but in return of being good people and participating in society, and there's no threat of security being taken away from these people, they actually would be happy. So that's my crazy idea, is that I'm secretly actually a globalist, and I would like a one world government and a one world economy where everybody's working together and participating in society and building up the human race, and we do magical things and we get along, you know. Buying a Lambo creates jobs. Someone has to build it. True. Definitely true. So what's your guys' bets on September? Whether or not it's going to be another dump month. Historically, it has been. But I just don't put any real emphasis on that. I mean, if the chart looks one way during September and it is telling me that we got more downside, I'll see when I believe it. But pretty much everybody keeps talking about this. They keep bringing up this like little graph that shows all the months. I don't know what website they're using. BTC monthly returns, probably. CoinGlass. Yeah, everybody keeps bringing up this this chart here. And September has had only 3 up months, and the rest of them were down. Now October seems to historically be a pretty good month. 28%, 5%, 40%, 27%, 10%. You had one down month in 2018. 47%, 14%, 33%. Down month, 60%. So, yeah, maybe we have one more dump in September and I'm in a weird spot where I don't care now. Don't care about like just geopolitiks or just in general. Because I think that's, you know, an okay place to be in. Because that means that you're kind of detached from it. I like the Eco Nano Vape. It's small and fits in my pocket. I haven't heard of that one. So many big ABCs in this zone we've been in, and I've taken good trades on them all, but now I'm just waiting, I guess. Yep, it's one of those things. I mean, if you're doing things correctly, Chocolate, you know, you should have kind of like some backup trades. You should still have a long open from here, and you know, obviously knowing that the BTC halving is kind of in our future, or I said that wrong. BTC halving has already happened. Upside price action following that is in our future. That, you know, if you closed these short positions from these tops, I really don't think that's a bad decision from like a macro bias. But like holding on to these long positions until then probably would be the best. Is it it's not a disposable, right? Crash Farmer. That's like an actual vape where you can refill it and replace the coils. I haven't had one of those in quite a while. I just, every once in a while when I want to vape, I'll go get a disposable. Other than that, I usually do the Zens. Yeah, there's nothing really to take part in today. It kind of looks like Ethereum might make another stab at the downside. I might, keyword might take the trade if we end up putting in a lower low right here. That might be something I'd take part in. But, hopefully we get a little bit larger structure before we go to the upside. That would really be preferable. But we will see. We will see. It's rechargeable, refillable, cheap coils. I pay $7.50 for the coil. Yeah, I mean, if I ever really actually got back into vaping, I probably would pick up something like that. I used to have a drag nano. That was probably, I think, my last purchase before I kind of gave up vaping in general. TRX has been hanging around this $24 profit mark all day. I feel like it hasn't moved a bit. Oh my goodness, look at that sideways action. I just need another candlestick that looks like that. That would be awesome. The hope would be that this ABC would retest, kind of these two levels here, and then that would create a larger B wave up to these levels, and then we would get one more C wave down, probably to either this local low or this local low here. And then from there, we could move on up. Whether we get that, is up to time. All right. I'm going to do something a little bit stupid. Okay. I'm going to throw a trade at it. All right. We have an ABC on a smaller time frame. I'm going to be targeting 61,860 as my take profit, which, let's see. Let's see if it makes sense to do this. I don't think it necessarily does. That would be a 4 restored ratio, just about. I'm going to open the trade one time. If I get stopped out, I am not going to try to reopen it and keep trying to play it. All right. I just think that if things are going to continue the way they're going to continue, this is probably a likely scenario while we're trapped within this range here. So, you know, if I can make a little bit of extra profit, I'll make it. So, let me do that. You know, just to, because we're here for fun. I'm here to entertain you guys. And sitting here with no position is not that fun. All right, so the account right now is up to about $250. This is a small time frame trade, and we are already significantly past the entry point. So I really don't want to use a lot of risk because there's a lot of risk. All right, so typically I've been using about 5% margin just because the account is brand new, or 5% risk, my bad. So I'm going to use 2.5%. So that would be 25 and 10. And then I don't want to use $62 worth of margin. Hold on. 10%. 2.5. 25. And I'm going to use a 1% stop loss. So I have a $250 portfolio right now. I'm going to use $25 worth of margin. I'm going to risk $6.25, and I stand to gain roughly like 25, 30 bucks. Like I said, if I lose, I'm not going to reopen this trade. I'm going to wait for the larger structure. I'm just having a little bit of fun because obviously this is kind of like my fun money portfolio. But, you know, even with everything that I just said, I'm still kind of doing my due diligence. I'm saying, okay, I'm not at my entry point, so therefore I don't want to use any significant, you know, I want to use less risk. And beyond that point, if we don't happen to get back to the entry point or create a larger structure, I'm not going to try to keep re-entering this trade. It doesn't make sense. But we do have an ABC position, and we have plenty of upside potential up to about, you know, 61,900. So I'm gonna attempt to see if we can get that. In best case scenario, me opening this long position dumps the market because, you know, the law of gravity or whatever. You know, as soon as I go long, everything falls to the downside. But that would still be preferable because I have a short open. All right, so $25. Open long. And then immediately add my stop loss of 1%. Okay, I kind of did things stupid, so I need to immediately close this. I just paid market fees for no reason. All right, 25. That's correct, right? 25? Yep, 25. All right, now. There we go. Now the risk is correct. So my stop loss is at 58,391. 53,391. It's not necessarily where I would want it to be. Obviously, the best place for my stop loss to be would be like right here. My stop loss is actually like right here. And then 61,900 would be $30 profit. I immediately regret this decision. Are you talking about to just go along with me? Nadim, hello, we missed you, man. When is the next video? I also went long according to ABC, but there is a long-term short, I think. Thanks for sharing. Next video, I don't quite know. I don't really have a plan for any videos right now. I'm kind of just winging it with the live streams. Yeah, I mean, so obviously the largest ABC that we have on the board right now is a long position. So macro bias is long. Medium time frame, which kind of does take precedent, is definitely a larger term short position. But we made $170 on these short setups the other day off of a $100 portfolio. So, I got a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of fun money to work with. And I'm still making an educated decision on a smaller time frame. But like I've said many times, the smaller the time frame, the more violent it can be, and definitely not in your favor. So I'm using less risk on this trade than I would the next one. And I'm kind of limiting myself. If I don't win this trade, it's not really worth it for me to keep entering. Because if I get stopped out once and I try to re-enter for a 4 risk-reward ratio, well, now if I do win, I'm only net positive 3. And if I try to do it again, I'm only net positive 2. It doesn't really work out. Now, if I have a trade setup where if the trade works out, it's a 15, 20, 30 risk-reward ratio, entering that trade 5 or 6 times off of the valid setup makes more sense. Because if I do win, I'm covering all my losses dramatically. But not with this trade. This trade, if this doesn't work out, it's not worth me re-entering it again and again and again. All right. It's, if I get lucky enough for it to win the first time, it's all right. If I lose, that is also all right. I'm patient enough to wait for the next setup that will make that money back, plus more. Sweet. Getting your lifetime membership as a birthday gift. That's awesome. Whoever's buying that for you, that's pretty cool. And like I said, if you reach out to me after that purchase is made, you can use the Discord. I got the account logged in on this phone. If you don't want to use it right now and you want to wait till later, we can set up like a little one-on-one session where I can cover any questions a little bit more in depth. And you can ask real-time questions beyond the live stream. And I'm going to leave that open until we break the all-time high. Once we break the all-time high, I'll probably take that off. Did you quit vaping? Not at the current moment, no. During the last bull market, I quit vaping for like 5 or 6 months. Ended up going back to it. It's not something I'm proud of. It's really not. But it's just kind of what happened. And I would like to quit in the future. I probably won't do what I did last time, which was go cold turkey, because I looked like a crackhead. I was just in a dark room watching The Good Doctor. Just really freaking out because of the withdrawals. It was bad. I really do think that the withdrawals from vaping are much, much worse than cigarettes. Because vaping, you can do it all the time. When you're in your house, in the car, it's more socially acceptable in public. Obviously if you're not blowing it right in someone's face. But like with a cigarette, you could be standing outside of a building and you can get those glaring looks because you can smell it all the way across the parking lot. With vape, it kind of just disperses into the air. Nobody really cares. So because of that, like you have a lot more of it in your system. And when you try to quit cold turkey, it is incredibly terrible. Whereas with like cigarettes, if you're a respectable homeowner, in order to go smoke a cigarette, I need to stop what I'm doing, go outside on the porch, light up a cigarette, finish the cigarette, go back upstairs, resume what I'm doing. It's a much more of a process to get that nicotine into your system. So therefore, I feel like cigarette smokers, although the method isn't necessarily safer, I feel like the overall process is safer. Whereas with vaping, you're just kind of free and clear to kind of just do it. So it's a lot more dangerous in that sense. So next time that I really try to make a go at quitting vaping, I think I will treat it like a cigarette. If I want to go vape, I gotta go outside, or at least go downstairs to the living room and sit there for 5-10 minutes while I get my fix. If I'm in the car and it's 95 degrees out, I gotta roll down my window to vape instead of doing it in the nice air conditioning. Stuff like that. I think that's what I'm going to attempt to do to kind of wean myself off of it slowly. And then I'll start implementing stuff like timers where, I can only have 2 vape breaks every 3 hours or whatever it might be. I'm going to approach it a little bit differently, and I'm not going to put, a negative pressure on myself that, oh, I really need to quit this. It's super bad for me. I'm just going to slowly and methodically wean it out of my life without being hard on myself about it. And I think that's a better approach. That I think I'm sure we'll actually have a lot more success. And also there's a lot of like chemical changes that happen that prevent you from going cold turkey. So, dopamine is I won't say solely responsible, but the majority of the process of neurogenesis being the regrowth and redistribution of how your brain works, basically the ability for your brain to change and create new neural pathways. So if you take out a substance like nicotine that is increasing the dopamine in your brain by a substantial amount, and you take that out, you're basically shutting off that valve of neurogenesis. So you're basically stuck, and you are more susceptible to relapse. But if you slowly wean off of it and maybe increase exercise, that increases dopamine, or take a very, very small amount of Adderall, take that as you will, such a low dose that you can't really get hooked on it, but will help you with other things. It's something that I've really thought about when it comes to like hardcore addictions, like heroin, stuff like that. Obviously, those do work off of other receptors in the brain, like opioid receptors, stuff like that. But the overall process is still the same. Neurogenesis is how you get everything back to tip-top shape. And if you remove one without increasing another, then it's going to take an extremely long period of time for it to get back to a normal setting. Which is why, if you don't have family and friends and a good exercise plan and you're eating healthy, it's insanely hard to get off of a substance because you have no other dopamine coming from anywhere else. So therefore, you're stuck, and you are definitely probably going to go back to whatever you were doing. Becoming a gym rat helped me quit cold turkey. Yeah. So if you're increasing your exercise, which increases your dopamine, you're making up for the lack of dopamine so that you can have the neurogenesis to get rid of old habits. So, I mean, although it might be hard, it's way easier to do that than someone who is lazy and has no other avenue of, you know, what we would consider happiness, dopamine. Obviously, serotonin is more the happiness chemical, but no, your decision reminded me of that movie quote. I immediately regret this decision. Present from my wife. You have a very nice wife. That's awesome. I've had a couple instances where it was very similar to yours. I've been thinking about questions while watching the live streams. We'll have to prepare something. Yeah, just we'll get it set up and work out a time and date to have a little chit chat. And you know, in the future, I'm sure I'll start arranging a schedule, or you know, at least posting when I'll be there. Of like you know, back in the bull market, I used to spend days where I would just sit in the Discord and talk to people. We would play video games. You know, Chocolate was there. We would play Valheim and stuff like that. Talk about crypto, play video games, chat with each other, have a little community. What's the point of vaping? Well, in the beginning stages of nicotine use, it is okay. It goes for a lot of different substances. So one substance that, you know, you might be on your high horse and be like, I'm better than that. But I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say that you might drink coffee or energy drinks or soda or something. All right, you can stop me if you're, you know, one of those crazy people, you know, that are like, I only drink water, I'm super healthy. But, you know, caffeine, for example. Why do people drink caffeine? Well, in the very beginning of introducing that to our body, it had a very large stimulus. You know, it gave us a lot of energy, and it's almost psychedelic on how it changes our brain chemistry and how we see the world. But obviously over time, because we're so accustomed to drinking it, it becomes a necessity, that it becomes a detriment, that if we don't have it, it ruins our day, and we feel super sluggish and tired. So nicotine is kind of the same thing. When I first started using nicotine, it had this euphoric feeling. It was almost like, you know, I say this a lot, it was almost psychedelic, because psychedelics to me is just the ability to change perception of what you view as reality. It could be very simplistic or very massive where the walls are melting. Either or is psychedelic to me. And it had a euphoric and psychedelic feeling, and I felt very upbeat, and that lasted for probably a couple months. But then obviously, as my body gets accustomed to it, if I don't have it, I feel terrible. So then it begins the stages of kind of like, it's kind of just there to keep the baseline. And it becomes a detriment. And I agree that it is. I'm not saying that what I'm doing is good. I don't think there's any benefit to what I'm doing. But we kind of just fall into that trap. Now, if I was able to completely get free of nicotine and let my body return to baseline, if I use it in a responsible manner, where, like, let's say I was doing really strenuous work on maybe like a college, you know, paper, or I had a really, really busy day at work and I used it, it would be a benefit. It would keep me in a higher state of mood. It would keep me more in flow. And I would be able to get more stuff done if I used it correctly. But obviously humans, we just have a tendency to not do that. You know, we use it too often, and then it kind of just keeps falling back to that habit. You really would have to have some sort of system set up to really prevent that. So, you know, coffee's the same exact way. You know, if you only used coffee on days that you really needed that boost and you gave plenty of time in between usage, it would be a really big benefit to your life. But for most people, it just becomes a part of your daily routine. And if you don't have it, you suck. And that's pretty much it. Like, there's no point to vaping except for the very beginning stages. Vaping and cigarette smoking and energy drink usage and stuff like that, as we see it, there's no point. But there is a benefit in kind of like that slim margin area. So that's my answer to that. It's very complicated. It's not as easy as saying that it's bad or good. It's really in the eye of the beholder and the responsibility of the person. But there is an argument to be made that humans, because of our biology, can't ever actually be responsible with non-endogenous substances, that we will always have a tendency to go overboard with them. And to a certain extent, I can agree with that. I think, you know, if you create a system and you can add abstraction to it, it can help get you over that primordial, like, primitive hump. But if you don't have that, you are probably going to fall into the trap. I love smoking, but decided to quit. $1,600 per month. What in the ass were you smoking? Cocaine? What were you spending $1,600? Is that a currency conversion thing? Are you talking about like 1,600 Aussie? 1,600 Canadian? 1,600 rupees? That can't be dollars, right? Because, I mean, even at my worst, when I'm getting like maybe a pack and a half of like Zen per day, that comes out to maybe $200 a month. But on average, it's about $150. So, I mean, still over the course of the year, that's, you know, close to $1,500, you know, $2,000. So what? I'm curious to what that is, because that's a lot. I feel like that's a lot. Yeah. So that's $1,100 US. It really costs that much where you live? That's insanity. I mean, I guess that's one way to get people to quit, right? Is make it so it's so expensive they can't do it. But at the same time, I feel like that's taking away autonomy. That's astronomical. That's astronomical for a pack of cigarettes. I think here it's like $150 a carton of cigarettes. You know, I'm not a smoker, but you know, in New York, I know cigarettes are ungodly expensive, but I think you were paying double, you know, pretty much what we would pay. That's crazy. Yes, I mean, you know, made sense for you to stop smoking for sure, if you're paying that much for something that's not really doing you any good. But yeah, you know, a cigar here and there isn't gonna kill you, and you know, probably keeps you in that balance where, like, when you smoke a cigar, it actually has a positive benefit. It really puts you in a good mood. But yeah, that's astronomical. Thanks for sharing that. That's crazy. I cannot imagine. You know, this vape is gonna last me the next week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks if I'm lucky. And this cost me $30. So I can't even imagine. You know, A pack would last me a day if I was a smoker, right? On average. Crash Farmer said it cost $100 to fill up my pickup truck. Guess I should stop driving it. I mean, I guess it depends, right? You know, do you have a job that requires the pickup truck? Are you really hauling enough stuff to make it worthwhile having that vehicle? And obviously, you know, you're not doing DoorDash in the pickup truck, so you're not spending $100 a day, right? You know, you fill up your gas tank and hopefully it lasts you 3 or 4 days, so it's about, you know, $20 a day. But, you know, it's getting you to and from work or whatever. So, I mean, I get it's not that bad. If you're spending $100 a day in gas without much profit, then yeah. You better go get a Prius or something, man. That's why vapes work so well, too. Much cheaper. Yeah, I mean, if you have a cheaper product and you can use it more often, you have a recipe for extreme addiction, right? I hope Florida goes recreational marijuana in November. I didn't even know that was up for vote. Johnny said, go to bed, dude. It's past your bedtime. It kind of is, yeah. I ended up sleeping through my alarm yesterday. I went to bed at 8:30, and I was supposed to wake up around like 6 a.m. I ended up sleeping until 9. I fill up once a month or so. The tractors use the most. I don't know why that's funny to me. I just imagine you opting to use the tractor to go to Walmart rather than the pickup truck. If that's something you do, that's epic. But yeah, I mean, if you're only spending $100 a month on gas, obviously for the truck, I'm sure you spend a lot on the tractor as well, but Kite, do you still recommend the book for people to read, Modified Elliott Wave? Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of like where ABCs were born. You know, it's actually something I thought about the other day that because I haven't mentioned it in so long, but it was a case for modification of Elliott Wave, of RN Elliott Wave. I know it's in my Google Books real quick. Hold on. Books. Where is my library? There we go. Yeah. So I mean, this is the book right here. Harmonic Elliott Wave: The Case for Modification of R. N. Elliott's Impulse Wave Structure by Ian Copsey. But yeah, it's not like a super easy to understand book. It definitely took me a fair amount of Adderall to actually like even attempt to make a breakthrough on it. But eventually, I kind of got a gist of what it was saying, and I simplified it even further, and then began to trade the way that I trade now. Yeah, it's not like a super easy book. Do I recommend people read it? If they're super, super, super interested, I think it could be fun. But at the same time, I think we've come a long way. And if you pay attention, I think you can probably find an easier grasp just by watching like live streams and stuff like that. And putting ABCs into practice yourself. Did you read it also? Yeah. So like I said, a lot of Adderall and a lot of excitement. I read through it. Did I understand all of it? Probably not. I read it when I was like 20 years old. But yeah, I read through it, and it kind of gave me. It basically summed up was the idea that Elliott Wave is too strict on its rules and its theories, that there needs to be more of a willingness to fluctuate with the market, and you're more looking for structure rather than exact targets. Pretty much what it came down to. I was going to install a small PC in the cab of the tractor for trade while plowing, but too bumpy for the mouse. Too bumpy for the mouse. If it's too bumpy, you just turn down the mouse sensitivity. That way each bump doesn't cause you to fly across the screen. But if you're doing things correctly, all right, you shouldn't have to be watching the chart when you're out in the tractor. All right. There's very few instances where it requires you to be at your computer watching a price level. But like once we move past it, you have your alerts and you let price action do what it does. But like you've explained it well, Kite, via your videos. Just need time invested charts. Yeah, I mean, beyond like the actual principles, I guess you could say, of ABCs, which is you're just looking for price structure. A lot of it is discretion. It's understanding your market, understanding what is the likelihood of volatility along these price levels, and how do I size up my stop loss versus my risk and all that. It's a lot of discretion, and that can only come from being in the market and playing around and seeing what this coin versus that coin. So Bitcoin I feel pretty safe with the ABCs, and I kind of understand what time frame. I shouldn't say time frame. What size structure I'm looking for and what I like to play off of. And with that, I feel comfortable using a lot more risk and smaller stop loss. But if I go over to something like Tron, although I do believe in ABCs and I believe that they can work in any market, I'm of the understanding that, there's a lot more volatility. And because of that, I might want to reduce my risk or increase my stop loss. You could do one or the other or both. It's a discretion thing. And like I said, that can only come from being in the market, feeling things out, seeing things work out, seeing things fail. It comes over time. That's why, I'm not fooling myself here. This little tiny ABC, I really don't have a lot of faith in it, to be honest with you. But for shits and gigs, it's okay to... What's the saying? It's all fun when it's shits and giggles, but it's not fun when someone giggles and shits, Uh, I'm willing to have a little bit of fun and look at an opportunity and say, okay, there could be something here, but it's not something I'm going to overplay at all. I'm going to take one stab at it. If it doesn't work, I'll wait. We're down 47 cents, guys. All right. It is getting to that point. We've been on live stream for what? Over 2 hours. And we've talked about everything from government conspiracies to how to change the world by collectively banding together and being better humans, to watching stagnant price action that is just not moving. That I think it's time for us to start the outro procedure, which my chat is gone. Where did my chat go? Oops, something went wrong. That's not what I want to hear. This page is not available. What happened? I lost my chat. Okay. Chat's back. All right, let's do Wordle. Will we fail for a third day in a row? That is the question. We have lost 2 days. Okay. We have a T and an I and an E. T and an I and an E. Okay, we still have 4 more tries. Let me try to find a word to attempt to get some more letters here. I'm going to go with clamp. Okay, that's not a word. Okay, clamp. Because the only letter that I'm using here that has already been used that we know that is not going to be in the word is A. Okay. That wasn't a total failure. We got rid of some of the letters and we secured an L. That's not a word. I felt like that was going to be it, but it was not. All right, so we know that it's I-L-I-T. L-I-T. L-I-T. I just took a guess. What is lithe? Lith? What? I got a lith? Don't make fun of me. I got a lith. What is lithe? What? Hold on. Let me turn the music off real quick.
Lithe.
Lithe. It's really funny to me because I use this word so much as like a joke. I call people supple. Thin, supple, and graceful. Very supple boy. I tell Fish that all the time because his skin, you can kind of just like pinch it and move it around. He's very supple. Okay. Thin, supple, and graceful, I guess. I can't believe we actually got that. I didn't know that was a word. Lithe. I'm gonna very lithe. You're very lithe. Very lithe man. It sounds like I'm trying to say nice with a lisp. You're a very lithe man. Excellent. New word added to the vocab. I am happy. And we can end today's stream with something new in our pocket. Very lithe man. All right, guys. I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. And I appreciate you. I might be seeing you tomorrow. Statistically. If not, I will talk to you soon. As always, trade safe. Try not to do what I did. All right. And if you do, try to look at it from an objective perspective and make sure that you're using less risk or an increased stop loss or whatever it might be if you're going to take a stab at these inconsistent regions. And that's all I got to say. Good night, guys. Let's go ahead and choose a song as I hop off here today. Yeah, we'll do that one. And the final bow. The final blow. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? All right, guys. Let's do the thing and log off for today. I'll see you guys soon, all right? Bye.
I never left, I was growing. I was on tour back in 2013 before y'all had a high school diploma. Too busy grinding and being on TV to actually live in the moment. Before Canon was making affordable cameras, I was already in focus. before content was even a word. I ain't think that I had time to waste, so TikTok was clocks and it had me concerned. Musically, I was on Musically, flow was too mucusy, sick with it, dribble the verse. We talking about viral sensations, creating a wave in the game, they know I did it first. It was a blur, I'm better than ever. Ask how I'm doing, never been better. If I'm a boomer, turn up the treble. This album, I'm reaching a whole nother level. Don't ever settle, I was complacent, I put me adjacent, and I should've never thought I was out of my prime before I ever touched it and moved on to different endeavors. Yeah, now Hunter got me on kill mode. If I come to kick it, we winning. If it's 4th and inches, y'all punting the field goal. Y'all problem is y'all ain't got real goals. Y'all problem is change, it ain't real gold. Y'all problems is if you don't work on yourself, then your wealth will always be real low. Still cold, cover my son's ears. I'm AZ's king and I ain't even from here. Moved to LA, said I already won here. I moved back, got a bunch of people to come here. And what's weird, I ain't show nothing but love here. Made a whole lane for the people to bump here. I built a platform for the people to learn from and kick down doors. It was always shut here. Yeah, but you gotta fall back sometime. Take a whole new path sometime. Know we all get mad sometime, I do. Yeah, spill my soul on the track sometime. Reminisce on the past sometime. Know we all relapse sometime, it's true. How are you? I'm just asking cause nobody asks me. I'm always busy, so I don't expect you to ever think it's going badly. Honestly, I don't know family. Honestly, I don't know how to be friends with nobody cause they always stab me or leave me to never hit back. I look in the mirror and question and head off to therapy sessions to find me the answers. The common denominator in the mirror, it appears that I must be the cancer. All of this pressure that's measured by money and fame, the things I obtain, try to remain the same. It's been in my frame when progress seems to be me going backwards. Yeah, every time that I better myself, somehow I hurt everyone else. My music is left on the shelf. I'm looking for things I ain't felt. I wonder if they exist. Sometimes I think it's a curse to be born with a gift. I don't know. It's like everyone hates me unless they can manipulate me. Unless they can get the version of me that they see in their dreams. It's a nightmare to be in my shadow when they wake. The separation from my own meditation calms the trees that used to shake, and without chaos they break when I no longer relate. And because things are going great, there's not really a place, and misery loves company, so they come for me instead of come for me, because they see luxury, and those who could have stuck with me chose to run from me and throw dirt on my name. No matter how much money, time, heart, soul, resources, or food on their plate, somehow I made the mistake for wanting them to be great. And I'll take that blame like Akon, cause I know when my day's gone, my intent was always to be the best version of myself and help you see the true you and improve on the things that made you smile. I built house after house after house and watched it burn down and felt burnt out, but I learned now, peace within myself allows me to go unfazed. I choose happiness every day, and I hope tomorrow you do the same. For real.